In this video, I'm going to cover how the Hayabusa motor is mounted in the Thunder Roadster GTR. First, let's look at the engine mounts. You'll see these are the engine mounts from Toys by Tink. They're really nicely made. There's the front engine mount, which mounts into the locations on the front of the motor here. And it goes straight down and bolts into the same location as the Yamaha 1250 engine mounts. And there's a similar engine mount on the back here, which also mounts into some threaded locations in the back head of the motor. And again, the uprights go straight down. Now, when I first installed the motor, I didn't know whether these uprights should go on the inside of the frame, down here on the inside of the frame, which is where there are now, or on the outside of the frame. I actually tried it in both locations, and I believe it's intended to go on the inside of the frame as I have them currently mounted, because that way the vertical struts go up and down versus at an angle, which they would be if they were mounted on the outside of that frame. Anyway, so that's the front and rear mounts, which I guess you could also call them the driver's side mounts. So now let's look at the other side, the passenger side. This side is a little trickier because you have to do some fabrication. With the Yamaha motor, there was a bolt right here where the shifter triangular plate was bolted to. You actually have to cut that bolt off the frame because there's a new bolt that comes already on the new engine mount on this side of the motor. So you actually use the bolt that's on the engine mount. And the way I would suggest doing this is first install the engine mounts on the left-hand side over here, drop the motor in, bolt the engine up on the left-hand side, and then with the drive shaft installed, you can see exactly where the engine has to be front to back to properly fit up with the drive shaft. And then once you have fitted it up with the drive shaft, you can mark the bolt hole locations for the right-hand side engine mounts, and then go ahead and drill those bolt hole locations. That way you're sure to have the engine properly fitted front and back. The other thing I'd point out here is the clutch slave. You can buy a mount for the clutch slave, but I sort of made my own. What I did was I took the OEM cover, which covers the entire, it covers the sprocket, which would normally be here, and cut the mounting columns off the OEM bracket on the top, and also there's one down here on the bottom. That way I know that the clutch slave will be exactly positioned at the correct distance from the motor, because I use the actual OEM piece here that was cut from the sprocket cover. And then I use the aftermarket clutch slave support bracket to hold the clutch slave there. You'll also have to buy a fitting here that goes into the clutch slave in order to connect to the clutch hose. And the size of that fitting is listed in my parts list. I think that that covers it for the engine installation. Thanks for watching.